Hello,
Hello, we're live.
we are live. Can you tell this is new?
Yeah.
So, Lewis, the subject, the topic that we're going to go for today is touching upon your recent year of sobriety. And before I ask you to introduce yourself, I just want to have just to make it clear, this isn't a discussion upon alcoholism, which is of course a very serious disease. It's more to do with the laddish culture that still exists in workplaces, whereby drinking is a part of not of the workplace, because that's wrong, but more of a case of going for drinks after work and that kind of forced social environments. And then I thought we'd touch on a book that I've just finished reading, which is the 5 a.m. Club, and you are, as I understand, 8 chapters in.
Yep, on the back of your recommendation.
So I thought we could kind of touch on that towards the back end. But for the moment, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a management consultant, so I go into businesses and transform them ultimately, introduce new technology, improve processes, etc. I've worked with quite a few big international businesses. A dad to a 6-year-old girl, obviously husband as well. Yeah, I'm trying to think how else I define myself. Job and family.
Transformation specialist.
Yeah, exactly.
But we first met when we were in Spaces and Forum 3 before that here in Whiteley, weren't we? When we had office space in there.
Yeah.
And kind of quite like-minded as far as trying to the never-ending search for work-life balance, how to achieve it, how to learn it, how to be zen outside of work, and also we share a lot of interest with regard to fitness and things like that. So which makes the topic of today quite an interesting one. And I recently saw on your Instagram, because we hadn't really discussed that, had we?
No.
But you did a year of sobriety, and I can't get underneath, can't understand why you decided to do that. Can you explain a little bit?
Yeah, it's interesting because obviously you introduced this at the start, talking about alcoholism, if I can say it.
I struggle with
And
that.
yeah, it's a difficult word actually to say. But there was a dependency there, even though I wouldn't define myself as an alcoholic. So over the years, since I was from a really young age, and I don't think it's as easy for this sort of situation to happen these days, thankfully, because of new restrictions and laws that have come in. But I used to, from 15 actually, go out to the pub and go out drinking. So from a really, really young age. Um, and so I started full-time work when I was 16. So I had sort of older colleagues and older friends ultimately, which sort of really put me into that position where I was going out and drinking more and more in sort of a work social setting. So from a young age, I've been or have been doing that, and it did become a bit more of a dependency issue, in terms of in a social setting. I felt the need that I needed to have that, what do you used to call it, alcohol blanket of confidence.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, it massively helped with my confidence, because at that age, coming out of secondary school, I wasn't such a confident guy. But actually, that gave me, going into the work environment, hanging out with older people, gave me that sort of that confidence about me by having that drink. But that would become, more of a sort of binge drinking, a regular binge drinking occasion,
Mm.
on a weekly basis, sometimes 3 nights a week. So yeah.
And was that to kind of fit in with everybody else? Well, was it peer pressure, or was it your own of your own volition?
I think it was a bit of both really. So it was to fit in and peer pressure. And I liked the feeling of it. I liked the feeling that it actually gave me um, that sort of relaxed feeling, which then allowed me to be more confident, open up, and all that sort of stuff. But there was peer pressure involved, definitely, and I think that's just Back then, obviously, we're talking 20 years ago. That was the more of the culture. Well, the tail end of that culture. I think over 20 in the last 20 years has been a bit of a transition, which I'm beginning to notice now with the younger generation coming up into the workplace.
Yeah. Well, funny enough, I overheard a conversation in the gym the other day, and it was there was a father and son in there, and I probably guessed the son was probably early 20s, and the father probably early 40s or something like that. But the young lad was talking to one of his friends, and he said, "Oh, we're going to go for a drink later." And they both went, "Yeah, yeah, great, good idea. Starbucks." And the dad kind of laughed and was like, "What do you mean you're not going for a? You mean surely you mean a real drink?" And I said, "No, no, no. We're gonna pop in for a coffee." And I thought, isn't that a nice kind of culture change, culture
Yeah,
shift?
good transition.
Yeah, yeah, from how things are now. But
Hence,
I
I'm
guess,
taking one now.
yeah, I think it's kind of so. Before you decided to undertake this year of sobriety, can you kind of talk me through what your week was like from a drinking perspective? And just kind of, was it a weekend thing? Was it, were you drinking every night, or you just want us to do that?
Yeah, sure. So I was actually using it as almost like a milestone, um, for getting through the week and then getting to the end of the week, which became obviously unhealthy. Your body is not meant to consume that amount of alcohol, on a weekly basis. I think what's the NHS recommendation, about 14 units a week or something like that. So it would get to Wednesday and be like, oh, should we have a few bottles of wine, with the wife? And sometimes that would be 3 bottles of a Wednesday night. And then you'd get to Friday, and it's, oh, it's Friday night, let's have some more. And obviously, I'm talking about the stage just before I decided to stop
Yeah.
drinking. Obviously, being a married man, not going out clubbing all the time. And then at the weekend, yeah, and at the weekend, it would be, if you're meeting up with friends or family at an occasion, whether that was in someone's house or at a pub, I would drink then as well, and that would be a bit more. Not just bottles of wine, that would be all sorts of stuff. So yeah, through the course of the week, you could easily exceed those 14 units, without even really thinking. And like you said at the start, not from an alcoholic perspective, but just through routine. And it was kind of a dependency, more so for relaxation, I'd say, during the week and that Friday night feeling. And then at the weekend, you're then moving into the whole social aspect side of things, and just chilling and being confident and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it seems to be there's still this thing of, to truly relax, you need to have a glass of wine or a beer in your hand. So what made you decide to go for a whole year and potentially more? And we will talk about what your plans are afterwards. What was it? What was the change? Was there a defining thing?
Yeah, there was a few things really. So I, as you know, I'm sort of big into fitness, and I think, sort of had a bit of an epiphany, as I'm sort of late 30s now, or getting towards late 30s, that I need to just knock this on the head, and I want to be like in optimum health. I want to be as fit as possible and live a good long life, and sort of reduce any blockers to that, or mitigate any blockers to that, as best I can. So that's one piece of it. I can't remember what the question is now. I'm just waffling.
No, I just wondered whether
what was your question?
I guess because and I can probably talk from my perspective, which is a bit
Yeah,
different from yours, but I too was, Friday night comes and it's, gin and tonic, whatever it is, whatever you drink.
or your red wine.
Yeah, it became something that it was Friday night, wasn't it? And then I moved on to I oddly started to like Tanqueray, the non-alcoholic gin.
I haven't tried that yet. Is that good?
Oh, I preferred it. Honestly, well, everything is fantastic. And I found myself kind of like one thing for me was that I would often wake up on a Saturday morning, and I wouldn't. I think a bit lethargic, or just not totally clear. And I thought, I don't really like this, particularly when you have kids and you've got to make the absolute most of weekends, for them as well as you, because they go so quickly. I didn't want to spend the first hour kind of be a little bit, not quite with it. And that for me was one of the
Well,
key things.
only the first hour, Luke. For me, it
Oh
ends
yeah,
up
no,
being
because
the whole
well,
day pretty much.
well, the thing is, non-alcoholic gin doesn't make you that thingy, but it is. I think that for me was one of the it's probably the most noticeable things. And I like
Yeah,
when I did that body transformation a few years ago, the non-alcohol element was I actually quite embraced it because I wanted, not that I need an excuse to do it, but the
yeah,
detrimental effects on your health was something that I didn't really want to experience anymore. And like you said, me being late 30s as well.
yeah.
Um, uh, uh,
Yes.
um, you're looking at ways to elongate your life really and
Yeah,
keep yourself as young as possible. And I still want to be as active as I am. I love being active. I love doing things, especially with the kids as well. So for me, that was it. I just wonder whether you'd had that kind of epiphany, or whether it's
yeah,
a combination of things.
yeah. No, it was a combination of things, really. It was it was preventing me from being the best sort of, like as you said, dad I could be. Also husband, I think, because I would drink to the extreme. I've always, since that very young age, I wouldn't be able to just go and have a few drinks. So it was more of a sort of, uh, I'm trying to think of the word, but it just, I would, as I said, drink to the extreme. So if I was, for example, going on a night out, if I was at a wedding, I wouldn't know my limits, which then causes you problems, as I'm sure you can
Mm.
gather.
Yeah.
Um, and I always felt like I had to be the last person standing. It wasn't so much of an issue at home, just drinking with the wife. It's when I was in social situations, which then gives you a horrendous hangover the next day because
Yeah.
you've mixed your drinks and you've had about 25. Um, concoction of toxic chemicals,
Yeah.
um, and that's just not. It wasn't a way for me to live. It was just affecting my mental clarity, affecting my mental health as well. Actually,
Mm.
that's a big topic to talk about, because yeah, I found that my body was kind of in an imbalance. You drink to extreme to almost to feel like you're coping with anxiety and um, to escape certain things. But actually, there's nothing you need. Certainly, from what I've learned about myself, there's nothing I need to escape. I don't know why I wanted to escape.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
wanted that sort of, oh, let's just forget about everything and just have that feeling that felt so good when I was younger,
Yeah.
to continue into to later life. But actually, it's that's not the case. So yeah, there's a number of different things. Obviously, I want to be able to get up at 5 a.m. Um, have started the day with a really, really good routine, be there for my daughter, and be the best husband throughout the day as well, and get stuff done. That's the
Yeah.
main thing, right?
Ticking off the life admin. Well, I guess
Yeah.
kind of like so for me then it'd be great to hear what's the difference now? So you've a year off
Yep.
alcohol. What's better or worse?
Yeah. So for me, it's that sharpness, on a daily basis. So there's no sluggishness. Obviously coincided with a really nutritious and healthy diet that I um, sort of do nowadays. Um, there's that. There's the whole being able to train better. My fitness is better, in terms of that the some of the stuff I do, running, cycling, all that sort of stuff is just that little bit better than what it was before. Um, yeah, and for my productivity in terms of my job and just that general life admin, as you mentioned, that's a lot better. I think the bit that I was most nervous about was the social side,
Mm.
because as you know, like, I'm not drinking in the day whilst I'm working, and you've seen me about in spaces and things like that, and I am a chatty person, and I like talking to people and I like socializing. So I had to sort of get out of my own way and just think, I don't actually need that to help me socialize.
Yeah.
It was just a culture that was formed at the beginning, and it helped me at the beginning. But I've learned how to socialize, obviously, as I've got older, and I've had to work in many different roles in different companies, different countries, and that
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was something I was really worried about, but I've overcome that. And now going forwards, I feel like, well, well, why did I even drink? Why do I need to
Yeah.
put that in my body anymore? So I don't.
Yeah. 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 But I think there's less pressure to conform to that kind of
Yeah.
drinking culture nowadays, which I think is really interesting. One of the things that you've just mentioned there, which might be a good segue into the 5 a.m. book, is the whole thing of social situations. And I think as I've got older, I've probably, fallen into grumpy old man syndrome, where I think I put it down to the fact that I've got so much on.
Yep.
I can't always stop and chat. I can't always do this and that, which is awful because I'm like you. I like to have a good old chat, and before you know it, 3 hours has gone
Yeah.
by.
I know. I can't get rid of you when I bump into you.
Well, but one of the things in the book which I found really interesting is the 5 a.m. Club book is not to feel bad about that, and not to consider yourself antisocial, but to consider yourself anti-moron. I actually highlighted that sentence because I thought that's absolutely brilliant. But I suppose so. I did recommend this book to you. I had it recommended to me by one of my children's friends' parents. A typical playground discussion, and I think that the 5 a.m. Club in itself, and I know you haven't finished it, so I'm not going to spoil it. Is actually a really good way of bringing efficiency to your life and making a bit more of that time in the morning when you can get ahead. And I'll be the first to tell you I am not getting up at 5 a.m. For love and money. But that's down to me because I'm a bit of a night owl as well. But I would normally get up at 7 o'clock, and I've got to get the kids up, blah blah blah. And it was like a whirlwind every morning. It was like this chasing my tail whirlwind. And what I found is that getting up at 6, following some of the principles that they tell you to follow. Some I follow tightly, some I follow loosely, but I get it because when I wake the kids up at 7 o'clock, I am quite zenned out. I am, because I've done all my stuff. I've fed the dog. I've done a quick workout. I've opened the emails and done a few things just to tidy up a few things from the night before. I've done a plan for the day ahead, so I kind of know where I am. But also, I spend the time thinking about what I want to be that day, more in the sense of I want to be more patient with everyone. I want to be more kind. I want to have a bit more time for people. I want to be focused and I want to be productive, but kind of just that's, I was going to say silly little minute there, but it's not that moment to tell yourself to kind of set yourself up for the day. When I think it makes a huge difference. When it comes to getting the kids up and starting the morning routine of breakfast and shoes, where are your shoes? I don't know what my shoes are. Where? I'm a lot more relaxed about it because I don't have the anxiety of what's in my inbox. Because in reality, I've dealt with everything. I think that's what's given me the biggest advantage. Now, bear in mind, I've read the book. You're listening to the audio version, and when you're on chapter 8, it's actually presented in the form of a story. And how did you find that? Did that surprise you? Because it definitely surprised me.
Yeah, it definitely surprised me. So I haven't got to the point where they're teaching much of the principles as of yet, which I'm really looking forward to.
The last third of the book more than anything else.
Yeah. But the story I really, really like. It's sort of bringing it to life, and it's obviously focusing on a couple of different characters who are from different backgrounds, dealing with different situations. But as I said to you earlier, but just before this podcast, I am glad that I'm listening to the audio version because the person who's speaking the story is bringing it to life with different accents and things like that, as I said. So it's nice. It's bringing the book to life. But yeah, I like the story. I think it's dealing with very relevant subject matter, even though the two characters it is particularly focused on have different lives and different ways of living. And you can already see that there's going to be a lot that can be applied to anyone and everyone ultimately.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And although I appreciate having finished the book, and I don't want to give away too much, but there's a way of dividing. They call it the victory hour, which is basically it's meant to be from 5 a.m., but for me it's from 6 a.m. And I actually, the way calling it the victory hour, you do feel like you're kind of winning at something in the morning. That sounds a bit silly,
Yeah.
but you're winning time, I think, which is the main thing. There's lots to do with balance, work-life balance, and all that type of thing in the book. But what essentially the bit that you'll get to is where you divide the first hour of the day into three 20-minute parts.
Yeah, the 20,
First,
20, 20, yeah.
yeah. So first of all, when your alarm goes off, you have to get up. Which for me,
Yeah.
I am a snooze button master. So that
I
was a
know I have
difficult
4
for me.
alarms. That's something I'm
Oh,
gonna,
I
even though
know.
I'm good at rising early, but yeah, 4 alarms to try
Yeah,
and
yeah. So
resuscitate me.
that was a challenge as I'm stumbling around the bedroom. But and then it's jumping straight into some exercise. So
Right, okay.
and I think I said to you before we started the call, I said, you know, when I'm exercising, it's fine. Whether it's going for a run, doing a bit of the cross trainer, or doing a hit session in the house, I'm fine when I'm in it. It's that 2 minutes beforehand when you're trying to find your trainers, and I'm just like, what am I doing? I could be in bed. But once you're into it, that's pretty good. And it's just a way to make you sweat. There's a lot
Yeah,
of
get your
science
heart moving.
behind it. Yeah, so it's not just a list of you should do this and you should do that. The science behind getting your neurons firing, all that kind of stuff.
Mm.
You're more able to be focused when you've done the exercise, all that kind of stuff. And like I said, I'm going to have to read this book probably another 2 more times to fully
Yeah,
absorb everything because there's a lot going on. And I thought that when I first was reading it in the first third, I was like, I'm going to have to read this again
yeah, I
to
was thinking
really
that
get
I have to
it.
listen to it again.
Yeah. But no problem with that. And then so the second 20 minutes, if I remember correctly, is about no, is about focusing on your plans for the day and what you and who you're going to be, what you're going to do, journaling a little bit.
Yeah.
And I've never been one for
Are
journaling.
you doing it? I was going to say, are you doing a journal yet?
I write down what my aims are because I have my,
Yeah,
well, funny enough, I have it here today, but I have my daily. I'm an old
yeah,
school notepad kind of guy. So I have my to-do list on the right and I have my meeting notes on the left. So I've tended to start every day with, I'm going to be
yeah,
this. I'm going to, if there's a particular, I need to be, focused on this and focused on that. And then the last 20 minutes is about to be, your own development and your own learning. So I've kind of adapted that a little bit because one big thing that's changed is that I don't, it's probably a good thing to talk about now actually is the impact of technology, and you're almost going through a digital detox a little bit because it
yeah,
says do not touch your phone for the first I think it's 2 hours in the book or something. Well, I've said okay, in that first hour then I'm not gonna necessarily touch my phone.
yeah,
And there's lots of it, going to bed times and things, and don't touch before you go to bed. Don't have a phone in the bedroom, but that's my alarm. So
yeah.
there's
Fine.
certain things you can take, but I think if you can take 10% of something from this book, I think you've won
Yeah.
because it is a game changer when it comes to a book. There's another book that I've read that I really like called 4,000 Weeks, and
Ah, I've got
we
that
should
one.
start a
Yeah,
book club.
I've read it.
But this one I think has given me some real pointers on how to change quite dramatically. Really, I mean, I like I said, I'm a night owl. There's no way I was getting up at 6 o'clock, but I can see the benefits of it now. And whilst I can't see the benefits in the first minute of that, after that I
Yeah,
can. But it's definitely something that it's a book I'd recommend to anybody. But
yeah.
I guess you've read a lot of self help guidance and books and things. What do you think's different about this one? And I know you're only 8 chapters in.
Yeah, I think well, we touched on it earlier. I think it's the story behind it, which is sort of expressing the teachings as opposed to other personal development or self-help books, which well, I've not seen one written in this way, actually,
Mm.
in terms of what I've read. But yeah, I think what you said a minute ago around if you can take 10% of it, um, that's the key. People pick up these books and like the 5 a.m. Club, and they're like, right. And I know people that have done this, that are like, right, I'm going to absolutely live by everything in this book, and that's just not how life works, right?
Mm.
So if you can take 10% of 5 a.m., I don't know, 10% of 4,000 weeks, and bring it together. And if you can just be even 1% better per week, I know people say 1% better every day or whatever, 1% better per week over the course of a few years, those micro changes to your routine or to your life or how you think about things, gratitude, whatever it may be, will make you that better person, make you better at your job potentially. Yeah, improve your
Yeah,
mental
so
health.
I think there's this where digitalization, easy for me to say, has come in. And I mean, even from the inception of the BlackBerry, because I can go back to like, I think it was 2006 or seven. I first got given this thing. So, oh, this
Yeah,
is interesting. Does it play games? No. And it was all designed to make us more efficient, quicker, faster. But there was the whole thing. I
yeah,
remember it being, hey, you know what, we're going to get more
connected.
done, but we're going to have a bit more time because, you know, to ourselves. That never happened because
Yeah,
everybody just then went, I've got more time to do more work.
yeah,
And we became hyper efficient. And that's where we are now. And I think there's the, you know, our generation and all generations have adapted and accepted technology a lot differently. And I'm sure the generation that's going to come after us is going to be a lot different than the way we've done it because we've had it kind of thrust upon us at the early part of our careers. But I don't think we've all adapted that well. I certainly don't think I have because I haven't learned
yeah,
how to disconnect and I've had to do some things like literally put my phone in a drawer just to, you know,
yeah,
because
yeah,
there's always going to be emails there. There's always going to be notifications. We're plugged into a million different social media accounts, and I get every single notification because I like there's a control freak
yeah.
nature to me. But I've had to force this kind of unpluggedness, and it's even more important. You know, actually, that's disrespectful for me to say. I was going to say it's even more important when you have kids, but I think with anybody, any family, you know, you've got to be present whether you have kids or not in your
Yeah.
life. And scrolling, whether it's for work or for, you know, social, it doesn't matter. We need to be unplugged just to live
Well,
in the moment.
we're being told to limit our kids' social media use, or well, obviously
Yeah,
our kids are not quite there
device
yet,
and
but the iPad usage, screen time usage, that's what
screen
I'm
time. That
looking
was it.
for.
Yeah,
Um, yeah. So why are we not doing it for ourselves? That's the thing. But I completely resonate with what you're saying because I remember when I first got my first work BlackBerry, I was working for a company that um, I was in a global role, and I would be working all day, and then because I was, you know, my phone's next to my bed, which I know is not really meant to do that, but I'd just quickly check my phone at night before bed, which is the worst thing you can do.
yeah,
And I'd be like, oh, actually, the South Korean guys that I'm working with, they've just responded to that, and I know that they're just starting their day, and I want them to get that done in their day whilst I'm sleeping. So I'm just going to
yeah.
respond to that, and then that's a good thing. I'm one step ahead of the game. But actually, work will never be complete. It's a never-ending game that's never going to finish.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I totally agree. Well, we're gonna finish up now, but what I think it's worth doing is when you have finished the book,
Yeah.
if there's anybody that's remotely interested in what me and you think about this book, I should say it's actually by Robin Sharma. I've disrespected him by not putting his name there. Then we could do a bit of a, you know, see what we think about it. And I still have to finish 4,000 weeks. I think I've got about 100 pages to go.
Yeah. Okay.
That typical thing where I read a bit of a book, then got distracted by something, probably a cloud in the sky. Knowing me. So we could do a little chat about that. But thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being honest as well about
Yeah.
everything
No
that's going
worries.
on. It's interesting to hear how it's all going. Just one final thing. Were you is this a total I will never drink again, or are you, you know, well, there may be a bit of champagne at Christmas or something like that?
So it's a never drink again with a slight caveat. Um, so basically, I first tried this in lockdown when everyone started turning to drink. I decided to have 8 months of not drinking, and that's when I found coffee. We talked about coffee earlier, and I bought
Other
myself
people
a
zig,
coffee
you
machine, which
zag. You're always saying that, aren't
exactly. Um, but anyway, the intention was that I'd go back and drink in moderation. So after that stint, I'd go back and I'd just have a couple of glasses of wine or a couple of beers. But that was something that I just didn't feel I could do. So I've got to the point now where I've completely knocked it on the head, and that's going to stay. And as you know, my fitness goals are always ever sort of increasing, and I want to set myself loads of challenges as I do. I like to have things to work towards, and that's just going to get more and more. But the caveat is I will drink mulled wine at Christmas
you?
because I like it, but you can't drink much of that because it's too sweet. So I couldn't have bottles and bottles of it.
Oh, that's exactly right. That's a very wise thing to do, I think. But no, thank you so much again. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries.
And I'll catch up with you soon.
All right. Cheers, mate.